Radio Raumstation. 24 hours a day. Yeah. Today with Mark Fussell. Hi Mark, what a lovely moment for me. I was thinking so many times about you and was curious to learn about your life and especially access to music. In my eyes, you are kind of a music poet. Your songs change, for example, from odd meters to 4/4 and things like that. What does music mean to you?
Thanks, Melanie, for inviting me to your unique digital forum. I really appreciate it, and I've enjoyed listening to your interviews.
Very welcome.
As far as poetry, I did write a lot of poetry when I was younger. Occasionally I still do. Writing is important, and words are important, and I also read a great deal when I was younger, and I still read quite a bit. And my mother worked at a bookstore, and she was always bringing books home, and so she had sort of an unerring ability to figure out what I would like. So we were always reading, everybody in the household. And words are particularly important when you marry them with music, and when they come together, it's just an amazing thing. And really good lyricists sometimes can throw in really odd words and somehow make it work with the song. And I really admire that. I don't have a lot of patience for lyrics that are sort of along the line of, oh, babe, can't live without your loving. No, not my style. I think people that write like that might want to take a little bit more time with the words. Anyway, it's very interesting trying to wed them together. And as far as odd meters, that's just kind of a byproduct of how I put things together. A lot of what happens is quite late at night, and that's when you've gotten done what you have to done, and your mind just starts to wander. You're a little bit tired, and your brain just wanders, and it just keeps going, and whatever my fingers happen to do is how it ends up. So there's no rhyme or reason about it. It's just quite organic.
Most of the artists and painters and musicians I know, they are night owls, let's say. So seems there is something special going on. Tell us, where did you grow up and what was your first contact with music?
There was a lot of music in my house. My folks played classical, pop, and folk music, and the folk music really made me appreciate beautiful harmonies. The classical music, I really began to appreciate music that's dynamic, music that's soft, then loud, then pensive, then soulful, then almost angry sometimes. And to me, it's almost like a day in the life. What goes on in your day? You don't keep the same mood all the way through the day. So I really connected with that, and my mother played piano, had a player piano, because at some point she knew that she couldn't play what she wanted to hear, so you pull out the piano rolls. And then she had an accordion, and best of all, she had a tenor guitar, which was perfect for me because I'm not patient, and if you have only 4 strings, then it's so much easier to learn. So that was very helpful.
If you look back to these times, what did you dream of when very young? What had been your idols and well-known musicians you looked up to?
I never dreamed of being a performer of any type, but I did listen to music constantly. One of my great friends, Scott, and I would go out to record stores, and we would go through the bins, and he was just so adventurous. He would buy albums based solely on the names of the songs or what instruments they played, and then he would buy the record. I rarely had any money. And we would go back to his bedroom and we would play them, and more often than not, it was something interesting. And it turned out to be a great way to be introduced to music. The first guitarist that I ever really paid attention to was Mason Williams. He's a classically trained guitarist, and of course he did that famous song, Classical Gas, which every fingerstyle guitarist wanted to learn. But it's also worth noting that he's a very good writer. He wrote for the Smothers Brothers comedy show and also wrote a book called The Mason Williams Reading Matter, which is just a scream. So if you ever see it, snap it up. As far as the all-around go-to guy, I'm a big Steve Hackett fan, formerly of Genesis, but he's had a very long solo career. And he can do it all. He can do the rock, he can do the blues, he can do classical very well. And I always like listening to him. Another spin-off from Genesis is Anthony Phillips. He kind of went the other way and did a lot of very interesting acoustic stuff. And he came out with an album called The Geese and the Ghost, which is just this amazingly textured album with mostly acoustic, but a lot of Tudor themes, a lot of very interesting stuff there, and he's still putting out a lot of interesting music. When it comes to jazz or fusion, well, there's Alan Holdsworth. I mean, what else can you say? I also like Mike Oldfield quite a bit, and recently discovered that his electrical guitar technique is actually the same strange technique that I use. So I guess he can get away with it, so that's good. As far as electric bass goes, I've always liked Mike Rutherford because he's a very melodic player, very powerful player. I always liked Charles Cronk and John Ford of the Strawbs, very interesting players. And then Ray Shulman of Gentle Giant. Kind of an interesting story about those two groups. Some years ago, two of my buddies and I went down to Las Vegas to see the Strawbs because it was the only place that they were going that was, within hours of Seattle. So we went down there and we're driving up to the venue. And I reminded my friend Scott, I said, remember when we saw Gentle Giant and the Strawbs together at the Paramount in '76? And that Gentle Giant basically blew the Strawbs right off the stage because they're a machine. Nobody could stand up to them with the possible exception of Yes. And everybody nodded, and we got into the arena and we walked in there, and then there was Dave Cousins, the head man for the Strawbs, and I boldly produced a poster from that long ago concert with the Strawbs and Gentle Giant, and he looked at it, and it didn't take him more than 2 seconds, and he said, "Oh my God, Gentle Giant, they blew us off the stage." And I had to try hard not to laugh. But again, I love that group because they're a great folk rock fusion, and we went into the auditorium and there were 12 people there. Not a good venue, but for me it was great because, of course, I was front row center and I was writing down everything I could see that they were doing. But a very strange evening, particularly as it was 2004, election night, and of the 12 people, most of the 12 people were upset about the election returns, and then in between songs, somebody yelled out about some frustration about the election. And then, of course, with perfect British aplomb, the guitarist turned to the mic and said, "Oh, has there been an election?" Well, everybody laughed. But in any event, that was a really interesting time. As far as other bass players go, currently I really like Nick Beggs. He does a lot of very creative stuff, and he works with a Chapman stick, very good with that. And I've met him, and he's a pretty off kind of guy, very entertaining, and he has stuff on YouTube that's quite a lot of fun to watch. And the first time I saw him on stage, I was way in the back, and I turned to my buddy and I said, "Who is that big Amazon woman up there?" And then my buddy turns to me knowingly and says, "That's Nick Beggs. He's just wearing a strange sort of, kilt and braids." And of course I immediately felt stupid. But an interesting guy. Another fellow that I've always really liked, as far as studio players, you can hardly beat Chuck Rainey. And he's played with almost everybody.
How did you develop when you had been younger? Did you play with others, for example, as well, in bands or duos, something?
Oh, I definitely started out introverted, and I was never particularly interested in being some sort of front man. When I started off, I was playing lots and lots of chords. I just went through songbooks like crazy. I probably at one point knew all the Beatles songs by heart, and it was just chords. And then I got bored with that, and then I ran into a book that was classical guitar for tablature, and that was great. And I found it actually fairly easy. And later on, of course, the classical music got more formal. I had to read music, which was always a bit painful for me. But from there, then I just sort of kept branching off. So no big road shows or giant gigs or anything like that, just a long, slow progression.
Is there any recording of one of your first songs you made? And can you introduce this to the audience? We want now to hear a song out of your history, let's say, in case you play it together with others. Who was involved?
Now, this is a really old song back from the tape days, and it was when I was playing in a band with my buddies, and I was on bass. Jim was the lead singer and rhythm guitarist. My buddy Craig playing lead guitar, and Steve, God rest his soul, he's gone now, on drums. And it was quite a lot of fun. And although this was a crude recording, it was done with a lot of fun. So here it is.
I must say I did not expect a kind of a little bit wild song now, but it's very cool. I know you write as well lyrics and sing. How do you do a song? First write lyrics and then sing, or other way around? How ideas come up to your mind, Mark?
The age-old question. Lyrics first or music? Well, in my case, generally the music. Not always. The lyrics will sometimes come first if some phrase sort of comes to my mind and I happen to write it down, and then I just go from there. But mostly it's just me noodling around, and I come up with the music first, and if I happen to fancy singing to it, I'll give it a try then. But sometimes there won't be any words at all, and then I have to make up these ludicrous sort of words to see if I can actually sing to it. But quite often, I can't. Therefore, people like yourself get invited to do a better job.
Technically speaking, how do you record and mix your tracks?
With me, I always start with acoustic guitar. That's just happens to be what I'm best at. So I record that first, and that's usually what takes me the longest, because as any acoustic guitar player can tell you, it's really difficult to play an acoustic guitar part all the way through cleanly. So that takes a while. Once I get that done, then it opens up everything else, and then I go into mad scientist mode, and I just sit there and think, what do I do with this? And I just start adding ingredients, and eventually I add too many, and then I start yanking them out, and it's just a long process. One of my rules is something that I thought that sounded great at 2 o'clock in the morning, listen to it 12 hours later, and more often than not, it wasn't that great. So I just continue to redo it. But it's kind of amazing to me, because the basis of any song takes me generally, the basic part is 30 to 60 minutes to put together, and then literally weeks afterwards assembling a complete song. And that's just my painful, organic way of doing it. But that's kind of my methodology, and other people have different ways of approaching it, and that's what I limp along with.
We want to hear some more music, so what is the most favorite song you ever wrote in your eyes? Why you feel like this, and what is this song about?
The song that I think is probably the most complete from my standpoint is the song that you and I did called What If? And I like that song the most probably because it embodies a number of different tempos, a number of different styles, and I just really enjoy that. And when you brought your vocals into it, you played softly, quietly in some spots. In other spots, you played, you just hit it out of the ballpark. And I just really enjoy those contrasts in music. And I think that is what I like to hear a lot. Very much like when the Moody Blues did their Days of Future Past album, and the entire album was based on a single day in the life of just an everyman. But of course they had multiple songs and an orchestra, so in some tiny way I try to do that with one song. And to me it succeeded pretty well, but of course everybody has their own taste. But that is probably my favorite song. I think you did a wonderful job with that one. And that's what I like to hear. I like to hear contrasts. I like to hear texture.
Gone like yesterday's breeze, gone simply turning a page. Why is there only present and past? Why is there no present tense at last? And so puzzles could solve themselves, riddles between you and I would fall to say. What if sorrow was just a dream? What if tomorrow was nothing as it seems? Let's pretend it doesn't end, and future strife will have no life. Summer sun is never done, and thoughts of cold is history old. Now let's go and leave the show for people who we once knew. The promise of fulfilling love.
Let's pretend it doesn't end. Let's pretend it doesn't end.
People we once knew have left this crazy show. What if there's no end? Let's pretend. What if there's no end? A while ago I heard that. Yeah, it's really a very cool song. And here I think I have to add again that I am mostly an instrument. And I do what I feel in the first touch when I sing to the unheard song. And I think this is a kind of the secret to make it special. I don't know if I make myself understandable, but if you think if you hear a song. If you know it and you try to do something with it, you always try to give your best. But if you just try to approach with something you get in mind and sing without taking care of what you do, then you have the real, I think, message. I don't know how to explain better, but it's not an interview about me, it's an interview about you. So I would like to know, you feel that the flow of your life is mirrored in your songs?
Sure, if you're being true to the voice in your head, of course the songs reflect what's going on in your life. So sometimes the songs are really upbeat, and sometimes they're just really not upbeat, and you just do that. It's the cathartic part of just making a song, and in my case, I don't really think of it consciously. It's just sort of the way it is. I think it would be a real mistake to try to manufacture emotion that you don't feel. So I kind of stick with what's going on. So it works for me.
Mark, when you look at sad and good times in your life, which of your songs you would say is the most happy and why? Tell us about that song and we will listen to it.
Probably the most upbeat song I've done is something that I did with Kathy Short called Magic Car. And at that point I had come up with this song and I didn't really quite know what to do with it. But I knew that she could probably do something really nice with it. So I sent it to her, and she added some really great vocals on it. And also the words. And it worked really well. It was a very upbeat song. It ended up being essentially a tribute to her grandson. And so I thought that that was a really great gift to her grandson and her family, and hopefully the song came out, pretty optimistically, because that was a lot of fun, and she was good to work with, and she also managed to restrain my kind of mad scientist impulses and start throwing things into the song, and kind of said, well, now wait a minute, there's too much going on here, and in retrospect, of course, she was right. The song came out really well, so I'm very happy that it came out the way that it did, and for a good purpose.
Oh, little one, I see you standing there. So many stories that I need to share. Take my hand and we'll dance on each star. Jump on the moon and drive our magic car. Then we will afraid. I am telling you, everything will be okay. Take my hand, then we will fly. We will fly. everything will be alright. Jump on the stars, dance on the moon. Oh, my child, what do you bear?
Oh, wow. That's one of the best songs I heard with Kathy, I think. It's really wonderful. And what I like especially is that one can hear it's you doing this song. So, people know you and learn your style and recognize you when you are in. That's great. But now, please, other way round. Is there any sad song you wrote, and what is the theme? Let us hear how this one feels.
Well, somehow sad songs seem to be the thing that people turn to. I certainly have a sad song. A few years ago, I lost a friend of mine to cancer, and somebody I've known nearly all of my life. So I decided to create a song, and I based it on something, a snippet of something that I've been playing for years, and then I expanded on it and made it into a complete song. And the theme was not necessarily sadness, it was more, you have a unknowable, finite amount of time on this planet. Don't be afraid to do what you want to do or what you need to do. And so that's what I did. So it was actually very cathartic to finish the song, and I felt a lot better once I finished it. But of course, you never really get used to the loss of somebody you've known most of your life and were close to. This song is called Hourglass.
It's so beautiful. The place you live now, how does it look like? How is environment and especially music scene? Is it more calm or maybe as well a bit exciting for musicians where you are?
The Seattle area has been pretty much a hotbed for music for many decades, starting all the way back from the 40s and 50s, a lot of jazz and rhythm and blues, and then of course through the pop and grunge and all of that. But for me, the great thing about the area is that it's just full of musicians. And so it wasn't hard to just bump into people who played things or who happened to like what you liked. And you were never just doing your own thing and wondering if anybody else on the whole planet liked what you were doing. So yeah, it's a great area for that. And even though nobody's doing concerts lately, I think that's still happening quite a bit, particularly in the digital realm. So I would say that yes, the area is doing very well.
If you could describe the place you live in a song, which one comes to your mind immediately and why? Please tell us about this song and we will play it after.
Well, this is pretty subjective. To describe where I live, kind of difficult, but what I probably think of the most is a song that I wrote I wrote most of it when I was 18, and then I embellished on it several years ago, and it starts off very slowly and then builds up, and perhaps that's a metaphor for where I live. It was much more peaceful and quieter when I grew up, and of course now it's quite busy. So here it is, Etude 18.
cool chords. Is there a nice funny story as concerns music in your life? Let us be part, and which of your songs you feel is coming near this moment?
Well, there's actually a couple of things that come to mind. When I was in college and I was taking classical guitar lessons at college, and I still think it's unbelievable. I got college credit for getting classical guitar lessons. I think that's amazing. So part of that is, of course, a recital. And so I remember going to my recital, and I went to the auditorium and I listened to the other people there. They were all singers or pianists, and I listened to them, and and I thought, okay, this will be good because I'm the only guitarist. So I showed up there, and I sat down at the chair, and I had to play a song called Jesu Joy of Man's Desiring by this fellow named J.S. Bach. Maybe you've heard of him? Anyway, it's a song that doesn't have a lot of stops in it, so you have to just keep going. So I sat down, and I got set up, and then I made the big musician's mistake, which was looking up at the audience. And I looked in that auditorium and I saw all these people dressed in their Sunday best. Some of them were clasping their hands together and they were leaning forward, staring at me. And I had to play the song. So I started playing it, and right when the song gets to a place where you can stop, I stopped because I blanked out completely. And I started up again at the very beginning because I simply couldn't do it any other way. So I got through that. Just another example of some stage fright. And I had a similar experience actually when I was in high school and I had to do this song. It was in front of everybody and my family, and I had to do a solo on bass. And I had to do it with a trombone and a tuba, and I was pretty nervous about it. And as the song was about to start, I suddenly realized that I hadn't turned the amp on. And so what happened was I was frantically looking for the power switch, and I couldn't find the power switch. And I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do. The tuba and the trombone are playing the same parts. I'll stand up there with them, and I will just essentially lip sync it with my bass. And just about a minute before I actually had to do this, one of my buddies looked at what was going on, and he casually flipped the switch on in the back of the Fender amp because, of course, as guitarists know, Fender amps, the switches are in the back. And the one I was using previous to that was in the front. Different brand. Anyway, what a relief, though. I did my solo, and everything else after that was so much easier because I didn't have to fake it.
beautiful, Mark. Another pearl and gem. If you would close your eyes now and choose a place to be when being born again, where would that be?
Well, I guess I'm a bit of a homebody. I can only think of being here in the Pacific Northwest. There are many places that I would like to be in the area that I know well, and of course some of it is bustling and crowded, but there are also still lots of places that are quiet and beautiful and secluded. So I wouldn't travel far.
That's good to hear. So you're happy where you are, at home and in the nature surrounding you have. Which song would be close to this when you think about that?
Well, here is a song that I mostly put together when I was 19 and have played it on porches, in living rooms, out in the woods, out in fields. It's just real simple, and it just sounds good in intimate surroundings. So it's called Lullaby 19, and here it is.
I'm so much fan of your music. It's beautiful. Now we have time only for a last question. Are you working right now on any music? And can we maybe have 20 seconds of what you have?
Well, I usually have more than one song going on. At the moment, there's 4, and they tend to take me a while because if I'm not in the mood to do a particular song, I just move on. So it just kind of depends on what I feel like doing. So the one I will play here is one that I use a spider capo, and it's a great tool because I just love the way it allows me to create open tunings with strings that have resonance and they ring, and I really like that. And if you were to watch somebody like Mark Taylor, for example, he uses one extensively, you'll see that it makes an amazing sound, and sometimes it also means that you don't have to work as hard to make that particular sound because of the tuning. But in any event, it's a great tool, and that's what I used on this particular song.
So promising. And since we had the interview with Mark Taylor, we know as well what a spider capo is. Thank you so much, Mark. I'm deeply impressed, and really I love your person and your music. It was a very cool interview for me, and I wish you all the best and hope to have you here again. Bye-bye.
Well, I'd like to thank you for coming up with the questions and taking the time, Melanie. This has been a really interesting exercise for me to look back. Collaborating online with others has been a great outlet and a great way to kind of get my creative juices flowing. So I'd like to thank some folks I haven't mentioned with whom I've done some work with. Mark Taylor, a great guitarist, a great guy. Michaela Vazana, great singer, and she works so hard at her craft. Pierre Rosique and Brad O'Neill, keyboard wizards, really great to work with. And then Pete Muir, who's an amazing guitarist and producer. And also to my buddies Jim Streckenbach and Craig Anderson, who graciously allow me to play too many notes on my bass. And finally, a shout out to Pat Stone, Dave Taylor, Fred White, and Randy Hyatt. All those years that I spent listening to them play Genesis in the Tower. And I fed the wood stove during the cold nights while I was listening to them, and it was just amazing to hear. So thanks very much, Melanie.
My name is Melanie Collie.
Radio Raumstation.
24 hours a day. Yeah.